Thank you very much, Shahid. As Shahid says, my name is Ellebæk. I work as a consulting offerings manager in Configit and have been with Configit for the last almost 17 years. What I'll talk about today is a little bit about how we work with configuration and integrations, and thereby also how you can extend your existing system or bring your own queue system to improve your performance and improve your effectiveness towards your customers. But first of all, I want to talk a little bit about what does it really mean to bring your own. You can say back in the 70s, bring your own was very much about bring your own booze or bring your own bottle. That's not what we talk about here. It's very much about bring your own technology. That was really a trend that started back around 2004 with bring your own device, where companies started to extend the capability of having users and their employees bring their own devices into their work environment. Utilizing your own device offers a lot of advantages to the employees, but offers a lot of challenges towards the companies because you suddenly need to support many different devices and many different applications in your environment. So this moved from here to actually then having the ability to do integrations in your enterprise systems, and this is really what we're going to talk about. Because when we talk about integrations, we also talk about composable architectures. And a composable architecture is really the matter of being able to integrate into an enterprise system and thereby extend the capabilities of this system with additional external systems or external engines that can handle specific scenarios. So some of the examples that I have here, so Salesforce, for instance, that is one of the systems we work a lot with these days. Salesforce CPQ has the bring your own C or bring your own configurator. In this external configuration concept where you can actually go in and provide a totally disconnected configurator that can be used in your CPQ application. Besides that, SAP has for a long while utilized a punch-out approach towards the IPC configurator, and similarly Adobe Commerce utilizes a punch-out gateway to manage all kinds of integrations to different systems. So these are just a few different examples of enterprise systems. But in general, this is something that all enterprise systems work with, and how do you really do these integrations? So why do they do that? Well, first of all, it's all about customer experience. It is about how do you provide the best experience to your users, and how do you provide the best information, the right information and the right content at the right time during your processes. And you can do that by, you can say an enterprise system can be very good at a few things, but it will not be able to be an expert in, for instance, configuration or in price management or in other areas of this. And this is really where we talk about integrations and how you can extend your existing system. So this is really where ACE plays a key role when we talk about these integrations. Because ACE is really, as you can see here, this is what we call it, the enterprise product configuration and variant management solution. As you heard from Henrik earlier, it is a plain SaaS solution, but it also comes in an on-prem solution. But the aim with ACE is really to have the ability to import and align data with external systems. And if you see here on the right, we for instance have our PLM system and we have our ERP system. These systems can provide data into ACE and thereby make sure that we have alignment between these systems. Through standard web-based APIs, then it's possible to then integrate and consume this information both from our configuration APIs, but we also have both pricing and BOM APIs that you can integrate with. And the key of this is, of course, to establish a single entry point related to configuration knowledge across the enterprise applications, thereby making sure that you have the right information and you expose the right information to your systems. So when it comes to ACE, then ACE is about seamless integrations. It needs to be easy, but it also needs to make sure that you integrate the right data and you consume and extend the right data at the right time. So a key part of what we talk about is very often how do you reuse your engineering rules and constraints from wherever they're managed and maintained, and then how do you add commercial rules inside Configit Ace, and also as Henrik talked about, the legal constraints, how do we get them added on top of that as well? And that really happens inside Ace itself. And then by having your APIs, the APIs that Ace expose, then you can consume this data from whatever application you're having on the downstream side. So the drawing here on the left, you can see we have SAP for an ERP system, but we could also integrate to PTC Windchill or to an RS PLM system, or even your legacy data. Get that into Ace and make sure that we get a VT package in the end that will extend the capabilities of your existing sales applications with both the performance and the completeness information that lies around the VT files. So if we dive a little bit further into how the integrations into Ace really look, then you can say Ace in essence is the platform consisting of the 3 different modules. So we have model, verify, and configure, which are the modules that allow you to interact with your data. So we see here on the top, we have the Ace data. This is really where you have your work items, you have your features, you have the information about rules and so on that you can extend and work with inside Ace. This data can both be worked with in Ace model, but it can also be compiled into VT packages that can then be consumed. In order to get data into this system, then we'll typically have some master data that comes in. This master data could, for instance, come from your ERP system. So that could be SAP, or it could be an IFS system that provide data into the system, and it is imported through the master data synchronization. Once it's inside Ace, you can then extend it with the information that you need. So this could be your commercial constraints or your legal rules that you need to add on top of the already known information that you have in your data. Besides that, Ace has APIs on the master data side that allow you to synchronize any changes that you have made back into to the master data system to make sure that you have an end-to-end process that will actually work in the end. On the verify side, we have APIs that allow you to work with analytics and analyze your actual product offering. So what that really means is it's about making sure that you can sell the products that you expect in the right markets, verify the combinations of your different features and so on. So that you can do on the verify side, and here you could, for instance, integrate with a BI tool like Power BI or ClickView to get some more detailed analysis of what you're working with. And then finally, on the configure side, we have the configuration APIs or the configure APIs, and this is really typically, of course, where you integrate to your downstream systems. And the key here is really, this is where you bring in your CPQ tool, to bring your own queue into the equation here. As you see here on the bottom, we have Configit Quote, but we also have a Salesforce CPQ, but it could really be any CPQ tool that you come in with. Besides that, there would also be typically other downstream systems, so it could be a web shop, or it could be a web configurator, or a visualization component, or similar. But now, because we have the data that comes from the master data system into Ace, going on into the downstream system, well, then you have the capability of finally, once you're done, upload an order back into the master data system again, for instance, into SAP for order processing. But another key thing that I want to point to when we talk about Ace is the fact that Ace also focuses very much on the omni-channel availability. Because once we talk about configuration and we want to talk about configuration lifecycle management, then we also talk about very many different stages of a product during both the sales process, but also how the product is consumed and how is it serviced and what happens when it gets decommissioned in the end. And this is also what Ace is very much about, taking the same configuration knowledge, but exposing it to different channels, for instance, through different applications or through different views to users with different backgrounds and different knowledges about your product, because this is also a matter of making sure that you provide the right information to assist your customers making the right choices in the end. So what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about what our customers have done at this point. And when I talk about that, I have brought in 2 examples that I want to run through and talk a little bit about what did the customer do and what are the advantages that they've achieved by implementing Configit Ace. First of all, this is really a quite common scenario that we see. So this is a scenario here, as we see here is the customer environment. This is actually because this happens for quite many of our customers. But the very recent one that we've been working with is Knauf, who is doing building any kind of construction material and building material, insulation materials. And they came to us with a concrete scenario about having a challenge about how do we efficiently sell our products to our users through Salesforce CPQ. So what we have here is we have materials that is stored inside SAP, stored and authored inside SAP's variant configurator, along with both some configurable materials, but also a large number of standard materials that can be sold. Using our standard extractor, we can extract this information and get it onto the Ace platform and thereby expose it in Ace Configure. We have then built an external configurator, actually very much in the same style as Henrik talked about with the Ace configurator, a configurator that allows you to interact with data on the Ace Configure, but also allows you to integrate into different systems. So this configurator is consumed by both internal and external users that go in through Salesforce. This is actually both Salesforce CRM and Salesforce CPQ that interact with the same configuration UI. Once they are done with their configurations that they make inside the configurator, then they can upload the configuration straight back into the SAP system, and then the order can be processed from here. But our key challenge that we're facing was really about how do you most efficiently guide your user towards selecting the right products, and how do you in the best way possible ensure that the customers are guided through the sales process. Because when you have several thousand standard materials that may only deviate based on dimensions or based on performance numbers, and then it can be really hard for the end user to actually pick what product they want to sell, that they want to buy in the end. So what we have built together with them is as well the ability to integrate Ace model into the equation here. So we have the PIM system that provides localized and marketing material into Ace model. And then we have a synchronization from SAP ERP that provides information about the standard materials into Ace model. This really allows the modelers to go in and create rules and create constraints inside Ace model that then in the end can help guide the customer towards the right product and making sure that they buy the right thing once they're done. And again, Ace model, of course, releases this data straight onto the Ace platform, and thereby it's available in Ace Configure. So this way, it both increases the speed of making selections inside the CPQ tool, but it also really increases the user experience simply because they get the advantage of just typing in, I know the dimensions of my room, so I just need something that fit to that. Then the other case, and then the advantage with this is really also that once now we have this external configurator UI, then there is the ability to move on to additional scenarios and onto additional channels, thereby making sure that we expose the information that we have even further into the environment. But the other scenario and the other case that I want to talk about is, as Shahid said, I've presented actually about Case New Holland before here at the CLM Summit, but the reason why I keep bringing them up is really that they are such a good example of how to utilize configuration lifecycle management, but also keep involving their architecture, making sure that they get more value out of CLM. And that's also what I'll show a little bit today. But first of all, a little bit the journey that they went through. So CNH utilizes an SAP ERP system along with a PRP PLM system. These systems synchronize data into Ace Configure. From here, the very first thing CNH focused on was how do we support our dealers better. So CNH uses a WebSphere portal that allows the dealers to go in and sign into the system, make configurations, and request quotes and orders directly in the SAP system. This equipment dealer portal is integrated with Ace Configure to provide the right configuration logic, but also the right information about the products to the customers. The next step CNH went on was to create an enterprise configurator for their internal users. So this enterprise configurator is really about allowing users that log in through SAP to utilize a UI that interacts with the same Ace configuration logic, and thereby making sure that now the dealers and the internal users work with the same logic, work with the same information at the end. Along with that, CNH built an analysis platform where you can go in and make analysis of the product offering, and this is among other used to do analysis of what are the combinations that we sell in a certain market and which features do we need to price and so on. Now when CNH had supported both dealers and their internal sales team, Then they moved on to how do we then extend our knowledge so that we can actually benefit our dealers even more so. And they did that by exposing the same information and same configuration logic directly on their public website. So you and I can go in and make a configuration of a tractor, go through the process. On the last page, I can type in my address. It will show me what dealer nearby me is able to sell me that product. I can request a quote, and the lead will be generated directly inside the dealer portal. Now, when the dealer signs on to the portal, they can see the configuration, they can pick it up, load it into the UI, and pick up the phone, call me, and finalize the quotation. And then from here on, they added the last part for external users, which is really an offline application that can run both on iOS and Android. And now, as I said, they are evolving their interface and their environment. And what we're working with CNH on right now is the ability to extend the whole scenario with service selling. So not just selling the vehicle, but actually selling service contracts that last for the vehicle's lifetime. And that is done at CNH. They have a tool called TechCost. This is where you go in and define your product portfolio or the service portfolio, as well as the cost for these. This information is synchronized both into SAP to be able to process the orders, but also into Ace Model. And then from Ace Model, it's possible to go in, write the rules about which services are applicable to a certain country, which services are available in this area, and how do we bundle them together when we sell them. And once this information is ready, then it can be released onto the Ace platform and thereby be available in Ace Configure to the different applications in the environment. So what are the common advantages that these customers have achieved? Well, you can say actually both of these customers came to us because they had severe challenges about their CPQ tools and the performance in these CPQ tools, and how do we benefit, how do we support the customers best. And that is really, of course, also the greatest benefit they get here. By utilizing the VT technology, then they will provide a better user experience, both in terms of performance, but also in terms of how do we guide our users and how do we make sure they make the right choices in the end. They also benefit from improved product modeling. This thing that you have the right users with the right knowledge that can sign into Ace Model and input their rules. As Henrik also said, there are some people that is typically only responsible for the legal constraints or regulatory constraints. They can fill them directly into the system and thereby having it available to the entire world. And this way we get all the data consolidated into the same system and thereby in the end up with one VT package that will adhere to both engineering, sales, and legal constraints. Then we have the analytics. They can do detailed analysis of both what have we sold, but also just what configurations have we made that may never turn into an order. And then finally, they also benefit from this multi-channel availability. The fact that you can take the same information and not just consume it in your CPQ tool, but actually expose it even further out into the world on your public website or on an iPad application or something like that. And now lastly, what I just want to talk a little bit about, what does it take to get here? So Shahid asked Henrik a question before about how long time does it take to implement a CLM solution? Well, that of course depends, but my key advice is really focus on where you get most value first. So my example with CNH before, this is actually really a quite good example of where do I get a lot of value very quickly. Because CNH had a challenge that their existing dealer portal had really bad performance. It was exposed to dealers. Dealers also work with other competitors that sell products like yours. Then they may choose the competitor over yours if you don't expose the right information. But by focusing on a user group that is both known to you and have a very concrete need, then you can very quickly provide a lot of value and get a lot of value back. As I also say, if you execute the project in shorter cycles, well, then you also have the ability to go in and make sure that you get feedback from the users. Ask them about what they think. If they have any request that comes in, ask about it, ask into it, and then you can very quickly turn it around to new functionality and added value for your users. Then consolidate your data. Florian and Anas was also in on this topic. It's really a matter of making sure that you have your data together once you expose it to your users. It's not a matter of having all the data in one system, but it's a matter of making sure that it's combined once you expose it to your users. And I say consolidating manufacturing, engineering, and sales data into the single configuration model, of course, gives the advantage that you sell only products that can be designed, engineered, manufactured. But at the same time, it also gives you the ability to make sure that users with different backgrounds can use the tools that they have in place. And then finally, recommendation, focus on a composable architecture. Make sure that the design you make and the implementation that you focus on is capable of being expanded and being extended over the life cycle of the application itself. And when I talk about that, this is really a matter of making sure that you can support users with different backgrounds, different knowledges, and thereby make sure that you provide them the best possible user experience. But that was really what I wanted to talk about. So back to you, Shahid.